In this video, I'm going to talk about constructing a crypto portfolio, and it's going to contain a couple of ideas you might incorporate. We're also going to talk about sizing, risk management, and Kelly's criterion in that context. So if that sounds complex, don't worry, it's going to be pretty easy, though I think worthwhile a discussion, because in general you probably want to think about how you approach risk, especially that at some point we might enter the next bull market, so you want to be prepared for that. So let's go on with that. What you see right now on the screen is an example of how a portfolio might be constructed. Those are actually two examples that you see here, number one and number two. But basically, you can split your crypto portfolio into this kind of buckets where you have stable coins waiting to be deployed on the market. You have low risk coins and high risk coins, so different kind of risk attached to them. What I mean by low risk here is basically all the large cap coins that already launched, like Ethereum, Phantom, Solana, Aptos, and so on, everything you know in the top 100. This is basically low or lower risk. Of course, everything in crypto is risky. None of this is financial advice again, so always do your research. However, looking at the crypto scale, those might be considered lower risk. On the other hand, high risk are newly launched coins, chains, small cap coins, so something that has a cap of $10 million, $20 million, or even lower than that. I would consider here everything that is lower than $50 million a small cap. So if you have something like smaller than 50 million, it's probably a low cap considering crypto. So this is one thing to remember, and this is pretty much high risk. Of course, that might depend on a particular application. And looking at the crypto portfolio, you might think about how you want to split the funds. Those are two potentials. Of course, you can invent everything by yourself, and you should do that because it really depends on the profile of the risk you want to take. So usually the more capital you have, the more you might be on a safer side. You might want to be on a safer side, and then you might want to also have things in a lower risk or stable category. Here the first portfolio is constructed in a way that you're waiting for the dips. You have 30% in stable coins waiting for more dips, 40% deployed to low risk like ETH, or Phantom, and then you have some high risk coins that were newly launched, for example Canto, for example new DeFi projects, some AI coins, for example, because you're playing into the narrative. But you have basically 1/3 of your portfolio waiting in stable coins because you're waiting for those dips to buy more, and you could buy more either into low risk or high risk. On the other hand, the portfolio number two is more on the low risk. However, it's a portfolio that is pretty much all in crypto. So here you might have, for example, 70% between BTC, say, and ETH, and that's basically it here. So you're here on a low risk side, meaning those things should not go to zero. However, the fluctuations will be as usual in crypto, and then you only have 10% for all the moonshot, degen shots, and so on. So this is definitely less risky here. However, it all depends on the size of bets you are making. So you want to think, for example, about the size of the positions you take. So think about it this way. So you have stable coins, so that's, of course, it doesn't really matter what you take here. It might be USDC, DAI, or whatever else you think about from the major coins, of course, because you don't want to have your stable coin go to zero. But basically, you want to have some stable coin here recognized from the top. Now, what should be the size of the positions taken for particular coins? So for example, what should be the size of the bets here? Like how much you should really take the bets here, how many bets you should make in general for that to make sense. Should this 10% or this 30% be like one big bet? Should you split that into a couple of bets? And this is where Kelly criterions comes into play. Kelly criterions allows you to basically say how much of your portfolio should go into particular positions and how much you should attach to that position to manage risk well. It's really well explained in a blog post from 0x Stacker. I will post the link down below. We'll go through that. Don't worry, it's a little bit of mathematics, but it's not that scary if you think about the example, and we're going to go through examples. So the Kelly criterion gives you the percentage of how much should go into a given position. So this K will give you a position, and for example, if that will be something like 0.5, then it means that one position should be 5% of your portfolio. If you go back to this thing here, it means that, for example, in high risk environment, you might, for example, have 2 bets, 5% each, for that to be or no more than 5% for that to make sense from the Kelly perspective position. So you should look for at least 2 different small cap coins. So going back to the Kelly criterion, the way to understand it is go through the example and imagine a scenario where you have the magic coin that basically is on the heads 60% of the time and lands on tails 40% of the times, and then you're betting on heads every time. So you have 60% chance of winning. So how much you should bet? And say you start with $100. If you bet $100 on the first flip coin, then you have 30% of losing everything. And this is the kind of scenario you want to avoid, because you want to keep on playing, you want to keep on being in the market. So you should never bet everything on one thing. This is how you go to zero. You don't want to do that. So on the other hand, if you bet too little, then it doesn't really matter, and there's also no point, because you just lose your time. You still have to do the research into particular coins, and you won't have really a payout here. Of course, it depends on how big are the winnings, but if the winnings are just only twice, so you double your capital here, it's 2x, it really doesn't matter, because if you put 1 cent and win 2 cents, then you have to play really a lot to make sense, because that would be, the winning would be just 10th of a cent, so it would give you a very, very small price here, and it's too little. So for example, here, to make the entire capital back, you would have to do 50,000 coin flips to turn our initial $100 into $200. So doing the 2x on the whole capital. So that's definitely too little. And the answer is something in the middle, and this is how we compute that. So going with this formula here, the winning probability here is what's the chance of winning. In our case, it's 60%, so 0.6. Win-lose ratio is, it means how much you win versus how much you're going to lose the amounts. And because you're doing 2x, so you risk $1 to make $2 back, or 0, you basically have win-loss ratio 2. And then you start to compute. So you have 0.6, you put that inside, then in the brackets you have 1 minus 0.6 divided by 2. The computations gives you 0.4 for the Kelly criterion, which means that this should be you should be willing to bet up to 40% of the current account. So up to 40%, meaning the bet with starting with $100 would be $40 per bet, but that depends also on how you lose the position. So for example, if you lose a couple of positions in a row, that should go down with time, and this is explained here. So for example, if you lose your first position, you lose $40, you will have only $60, then you do 40% of that being $24, so you're doing $36 bet then, and so on, then you do $21.60. So but this is basically how you bet here. But on the other hand, this is not crypto, this is more crypto-like here. So you only win like 30% of the times and lose 70% of the trade. So this is actually counterintuitive, but this is definitely fine, especially in crypto. You win less often than you lose, and it shouldn't be scary, but it depends on the win-loss ratio, and this is something you should worry about. So even if you win only 30% of the time and lose 70% of the time, if you win on average 3x more than you lose, then you should be fine. So you always make these bets of the same size, but then you're trying to win 3x each time and lose all the other trades. Of course, the mathematics will be more complicated in the real life because, of course, sometimes you win but not win by that much. Sometimes you lose but you don't lose everything. But it's the average that counts here. So with winning 3x but having only winning probability of 0.3, the mathematics for Kelly criterion looks like this. You have winning probability 0.3, win-loss ratio being 3, and then you compute the Kelly criterion. And the Kelly criterion, this is the compute, and basically gives you 0.06667, which is roughly 6.7% of the account per trade. So this is what Kelly criterion gives you. Now, the author here argues that the 2% is the rule of thumb because if you start on playing around with those kind of numbers and high conviction plays, this might be something that is worth looking at. So basically, he tries to convince you that 2% risk per trade is great if you can win big enough. So going back into that, even having in mind that you can, for example, bet between 2% to this 6.7%, this means that, for example, even in this category of high risk, you should at least have bets around, say, 5%, which means you should at least have 2 coins here to bet on. So thinking about that kind of mathematics, it's not like super complicated mathematics. It's really something you can do at home using just calculator and think about it. Worth thinking about it because it really gives you the idea of where you're going with risk, what kind of coins you want to bet on, what's the capital you want to bet with, and the most important stuff, you don't want to lose everything in one bet, even though it might be promising. But basically, if you're betting everything on one thing, it's just dodging gambling, and it never ends well. It always ends in bankruptcy at some point because you can't always win. So always remember that you should really think about the size and also think about those different percentages for building your crypto portfolio. That's all for building your crypto portfolio. Subscribe to my channel for more updates on DeFi protocols, new blockchains, new NFT collections, and much more. See you in the next video.